Hello there and good morning. You're back on the Mountain Morning Show watching Park City Television. I am so excited to bring back to studio two folks that you've seen here before, or maybe you've seen them on stage somewhere. We have Pat Crowley and Margaret Romney. They are the founders of True Voice, and between the two of them, they have done about 4 TEDx talks and a Shark Tank appearance. Welcome back. How are you guys this morning?
Thank you.
Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so when I first heard about this from Pat, I was like, so obviously my job involves talking to people, and I am always such a fan of improving that experience for people as well as myself. But it's one of those skills that even if you're not doing something like this, or even if you're not, a TEDx speaker like you guys have done yourselves, this is so applicable across the board, and that's why you have this event coming up through True Voice, right?
Exactly. It's often that moment of person to person where ideas get changed, or you're pitching, or something where you need to be prepared and you need to have some skills in your pocket for that moment from person to person.
Well, let's chat about your backgrounds a little bit. Pat, you first. So the founder of Chipotle, and I remember that experience on the show very clearly.
Yeah,
and trying
you were first,
these ground up crickets in the form of these tasty little granola bars, if you will. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background. What first brought you to the TEDx stage?
Yeah, so my experience at Chipotle is really what brought me to the stage, and that Chipotle is a big macro view of the planet and kind of what we're doing to benefit future generations and our children and their food supply, and so figuring out how to consolidate that to a message that really resonates with an individual has been a deep learning process, I think. And so but it's also been a platform to speak from about food sustainability issues. And through that process, I've really learned that, there's quite a science to really have conveying a message that connects on an individual level. And so just through that, I'd love to share that more and more. And so it's really kind of the art of storytelling mixed with really scientific derived skills and tools that you can use to really get that message across.
And you certainly got that message across when you were doing Shark Tank as well.
Yeah,
right? How did that go? Remind us, Mark Cuban?
Mark Cuban invested in the company, yep. And that's a wild experience where it's kind of this high pressure situation under lights and cameras, and if you're not clear, concise, and compelling in your message, then you're done. Yeah, very quickly. No second chances there. Yeah.
Wow, that's so neat. And so now starting True Voice with Margaret. And Margaret, share with me your background. And I was reading in your bio, you've probably been asked this before, the benevolent pusher is what you are known as. Give some context for that.
So friends of colleagues have both commented that when I'm coaching, when I'm helping people preparing for the stage, and both Pat and I like to do this, create a real environment of security. So because being on stage or sharing, it's really when people share their most vulnerable moments that sticks, that resonates with the audience. And so making them feel like that's a safe place to do, and then pushing them to do it. Yes, you can do it. I know you can dig deeper. How can you make your message bigger? So that's how I got nicknamed the benevolent pusher.
Very good. Well, share with me a little bit of your background, and like Pat, what first brought you to the stage in terms of sharing what you are clearly very passionate about?
I loved I loved being a coach and helping people find what was most important to them, helping them find their message, helping them find the stories that led them to where they are, or help them see how their life's work could be encapsulated in one message for the stage. I really enjoyed that. And then I loved also when I spoke at TEDx Westminster College SLC, I loved then connecting to the audience. It's such it can feel really scary, like you're alone, you've got the hot lights, there's everybody there looking at you, but the more I experienced it and the more that I worked with speakers, the audience is there for you. It really feels to me more like it's an intimate conversation, and you just happen to be the one leading it. So I love teaching people about that and how you can really connect with your audience.
That's so great. So you guys were asked originally to work with TEDx speakers for the Westminster one as well as Salt Lake, and you're doing the upcoming Salt Lake one as well,
yes.
correct?
Yes.
And then it sounds like you thought, man, we should offer this to everyone else too.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
how that came about.
Yeah, we got great feedback. First of all, we really liked working with each other. We have really complementary skill sets. And then we just got excellent feedback from a lot of the speakers that have spoken at international stages, high-level stages. And they said, wow, this is really some great content that you should really spread it, beyond just the TEDx stage and the TEDx community, but the community at large. And so we decided to do that and to hold workshops for people to get the skills, the tools, and build the confidence to stand up on a TEDx stage, but also apply that elsewhere in life. That's very applicable. Whether you've always dreamed about writing a book before and you need to consolidate that message and really hone it in and figure out how it will resonate with people that you're trying to speak to. And so it goes beyond just people that are going to speak on a stage, and it's really anyone that has something to say, really. Whether you have a business and you're pitching to investors and you need that to resonate. And so yeah.
And I like that, bringing it back to not just a career where it says on your job description, need to get in front of people and present. No, that it goes far beyond that, and just a one-to-one interaction too. And those skills are so applicable. I mean, not even just for speaking, just building confidence and knowing your message. And I'm guessing, I've never spoken in a situation like you guys have, but I feel like in that process, you almost learn more about yourself than you ever thought you would.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my coaches told me, he said, you end up giving the talk that you need to hear. It's just the really internal process, and then that energizes the audience so much more too. So that process of figuring out what your message is and then stacking it, and so that it's really logical for the audience is a process.
Well, Margaret, share with me an experience you've had in speaking or maybe coaching someone where there was like this aha moment and you were like, I got it, this is it, or something that you would like to share from that process.
I think the clearest or the most stark example was when I was speaking for TEDx Westminster College SLC, and I went out on the stage, and within like 30 seconds of me speaking, I could see the people backstage going, no, come back. And I know.
What
so
happened?
The sound wasn't on. I was the first one of the day. They hadn't worked out all the kinks. So I went out again. I was like, do I need to do a sound test? They're like, no, just go. So I go, I give the whole talk. I'm fine. It's great. I'm like, yay, kicked it. The audience was wonderful. I go backstage and they're like, actually, the sound was bad again, so I needed to give the whole talk again at the very end of the day. Exactly. So I learned how to be the first speaker of the day and the last. And what I really learned from that is that you do have it in you. Like, you can connect even when you feel like you're just so exhausted because you've given it all. I was also that day like supporting the other speakers, and I learned that like I had it in me to give it another time, and the audience was so forgiving and so incredibly supportive. So I just saw that like amplified. Yeah.
I can't believe you had to deal with that.
It was. I was
surprised.
Nightmare,
the sound, or like not knowing.
It was
because you're like, we've had that before where someone's like all these hand motions because you can't hear what they're saying. You're like, what's going on? That's a nightmare, and you handle it very well.
And you prepare, and you're like, okay, done. Oh, not done.
Really.
Okay.
Do it again. Wow, great experience. It's something I'm sure really that adds substantially to what you teach to other people.
Right. You'll be okay. You can do this. You'll be okay.
You can go away with one thing.
You can do it.
From this, you will be okay. I like that. Pat, what about you? What experience?
Yeah, actually, yesterday, I just flew in last night. I was able to speak at this big stage for the directors of marketing for some of the largest food companies in the U.S. And I've also been doing storytelling events, and I'm really enjoying that as a really creative, artistic expression and taking the audience on a journey. And it's one of the most ancient forms of art that we have. We've been telling stories around campfires for the history of humans, and so I've really enjoyed that artistic, creative side, and then I've also enjoyed conveying a message, very detailed and scientific. And yesterday, I feel like I really blended the two, and so I did a lot of storytelling, and I took them on a journey. But then I had this really powerful message that I think I connected with the audience. There was this like aha moment as I was finishing of talking to these high-level executives of here's what we need to do as a community to fix our food system. And this aha moment was that every single pair of eyes was on me, and I connected it with them at this deep level and this personal level, so that that message just resonated so much deeper than just kind of preaching or presenting information in kind of a data way. So.
And I like that you bring that up. That I feel like that's a very subtle, very fine line between connecting versus feeling like you're being lectured or preached to about something. Because then there's I feel like there's a disconnect once you feel that way. That's my experience.
Completely,
at least.
Yeah, and it doesn't come naturally. You have to practice that, and there's techniques that you can employ. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's part of what you guys will be teaching and sharing and coaching people on May 21st, correct?
Exactly, correct.
Give us kind of an overview of what we can expect and some of those things that you're looking forward to teaching.
So we've labeled the workshop about aiming your message in a TED style. And luckily this week came out, Chris Anderson, the curator of TED, he just published a book on how to speak. And the secret is there is no secret. He came out and he said, everyone asks, what is the formula? How do you make a TED Talk? And he said, it's really, there isn't a formula, but here's how you can connect with your audience. First, make sure you've got just one idea, which is really difficult to hone down everything you want to say to somebody or an audience just to one. Second is to make sure you connect with your audience. And I think we can really do that in a workshop setting when you can get feedback from people. Oh, this moment worked with me. This moment I don't know what you're talking about. The third thing is to make sure you're building idea on idea till you lead to your conclusion, which is feedback that we can give as coaches and also in a workshop setting. So with people, sometimes you tend to fall into the jargon of your own world, and you're like, of course, I know what that means. And so being in a workshop setting, you can get more feedback that, oh no, I don't, how do you get out of the water you swim in? How do you see more clearly from your audience's point of view? And lastly, how do you leave the audience with an idea that's worth spreading? How can you make this applicable to all of humanity and not just your own personal self or your business?
Which is the tagline for TED, right?
Exactly.
Ideas. Yes, and I love that even in what you've just shown us, you were very succinct. You're like, here you go. There's your example. We're going to take a quick break, though. When we get back, we'll chat more about the event and get from you guys some tips and tricks, maybe a little teaser of what you can expect from the event on May 21st. Okay?
Great.
All right, we'll be right back after this commercial break.